Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to colleagues and friends across the world. You know, this is a global event, so I know we are crossing several time zones. My name is Valerie Gordon, and I'm the president of the Caribbean Evaluators International, which is hosting this event along with our partners. For those of you who don't know, the CEI is the premier professional organization for evaluators in the Caribbean. And we are proud to be celebrating our 12th year of advancing evaluation practice across the region, where it's also our sixth year of observing the GEI's gLocal Evaluation Week, which is in its 7th year. So we only missed 1 year, which was COVID year, 2020. I think our record is pretty good. The overall theme for this year is evaluation, evidence, and trust in the age of AI. Some 330 events are taking place across the world on this theme during this week. So we are especially pleased to have you here for the first of 3 sessions that we will be hosting this week. Today's session is entitled Artificial Intelligence in Evaluation Practice, Experiences from Caribbean Evaluators. I know that you will agree that the topic is both timely and important. As AI tools become increasingly integrated into professional practice, evaluators must understand both the opportunities they offer and the challenges they present for methodological rigor, ethics, and credibility. We're really delighted to be joined here with our partners, the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies, SALESIS, who has partnered with us on our gLocal journey through these 6 occasions, and who, through its master's program in development studies, continues to play a key role in building evaluation capacity in the region, with monitoring and evaluation being a mandatory component of that program. We are also pleased to be partnering with ALNAP, the Active Learning Network for Accountability and Performance. Our collaboration with ALNAP started in late 2020 when we jointly hosted a webinar on evaluation in humanitarian contexts. We're delighted to be expanding that relationship and look forward to a long and productive partnership going forward. It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished moderator, Dr. Arlene Bailey. Arlene is a Senior Research Fellow at SALESIS, UWI-MONA, and previously served as Associate Dean for Research and Innovation in the Faculty of Social Sciences at UWI. Her research focuses on information and communication technologies for development, community informatics, and the role of digital policy and innovation in sustainable development. Arlene has published widely in international journals and conferences and has served in editorial roles, including Associate Editor for Information Technology for Development and as Senior Editor of the Electronic Journal of Information Systems in Developing Countries. Arlene, thank you so much for being here once again, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Valerie, and congrats again to Caribbean Evaluators International and Valerie as president for all of the ongoing work and for the gLocal participation and celebrations over the years. Welcome as well to partners and presenters and all our audience and everyone joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks very much to Valerie for the overview and for the summary of the sessions upcoming this week. We're really happy for your participation and we're looking forward to all of the discussions, especially in this very topical area of AI in evaluation. So in this morning's session, we are very happy to welcome our presenters for this session of the Artificial Intelligence in Evaluation Practice, experiences from Caribbean evaluators and CEI members. And we also thank again our partners, ALNAP and CDB, and Salif has been happy to also be partnering. In our speakers this morning, we will have Tashana Providence Ford, Kamisha Swaby, Dr. Stephen Johnson, and Kanel Kadey. And we're looking forward to their very interesting presentations covering a range of issues, and then we'll be having a roundtable discussion. We look forward as well to your questions. Either they can be placed in the chat, or you could raise your hand and ask as we go along. At the end, we'll continue the discussion. We apologize for Dr. Denise Thompson, who is not able to join the session today. And as we see from the overview, they'll be sharing, our presenters will be sharing emerging experiences on AI in evaluation practice, exploring opportunities and challenges, and looking at the ethics, the methodologies, and the credibility, all areas of discussion that we have been thinking about and exploring, especially as AI is at the forefront of many discussions. So we welcome our first speaker, first presenter, Tashana Providence Ford, who is the Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation Officer at UNICEF Eastern Caribbean. Tashana holds master's degrees in International Environmental Sustainable Development and Project Management and Evaluation. Her work focuses on strengthening evaluation practice, learning, and evidence use across development and humanitarian contexts, including emergency response, migration, and public health crises. She brings a practitioner's perspective to discussions on evaluation, evidence, and trust, with strong emphasis on ethical rigor and methodological integrity. And so we welcome Tashana and look forward to your presentation, and handing over to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. And I'm so happy to be here this morning. So as previously mentioned, my name is Tashana Providence Ford, the Planning, Monitoring, Evaluation Officer with UNICEF Eastern Caribbean Area Office. And today, today, I want to briefly share with you how AI was applied in evaluation of the multi-country program and some practical reflection on its value, risk, and implication for evaluation practices. Okay, you can go ahead. Great. This evaluation covers UNICEF's multi-country program for the Eastern Caribbean from 2022 to 2026, spanning across 12 countries and territories. The program aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, as well as UNICEF's strategic plan. It focuses on 5 core areas, including education, child protection, social protection, climate change, climate resilience, and disaster risk reduction, as well as program effectiveness. Throughout this entire process, equity, gender equality, and human rights remain integrated throughout the entire evaluation process in all areas. Next. Traditionally, within UNICEF, multi-country evaluation involved reviewing large volumes of documentation across multiple thematic areas, and very often within tight timelines of perhaps 2 to 8 weeks. This created challenges included time-intensive synthesis, risk of inconsistencies, and limited cross-cutting analysis. These constraints throughout the years created an opportunity to explore how AI could support more efficient and structured evidence synthesis. Next. Great. AI-supported tools. One back up. What? Great. Perfect. AI-supported tools using large language modules were applied during the desk review and the inception phase of the evaluation. These tools and modules helped organize documents, cluster information, and identify patterns, trends, as well as gaps. They also supported the development of the evaluation questions, as well as lines of inquiries. Importantly, in this situation, AI did not replace analysis. Human evaluators within UNICEF's office remain central. Human evaluators validated outputs. They applied professional judgment throughout the entire process. Next. AI was also used to support structured analysis across key evaluation criteria, including relevance, effectiveness, coherence, as well as human rights, gender, and equity. This drew on several data sources. In this case, AI supported responses to the evaluation questions, while all findings were validated and interpreted by the evaluation team. Next. In terms of efficiency, AI enabled faster document review, reduced duplication, as well as improved organization of evidence. However, beyond efficiency, it also added analytical value. For example, it supported cross-country patterns detection, thematic mapping, as well as identification of evidence gaps. Overall, AI helped to shift the process from information overload to more structured and strategic analysis. Next. At the same time, the use of AI introduces important ethical and methodological risk, as highlighted in the United Nations Evaluation Group of 2025 guidance, as well as UNICEF's framework. These include algorithmic bias, hallucinated or inaccurate outputs, as well as loss of contextual nuances. There are also risks of data privacy, confidentiality, as well as transparency. These issues are particularly important in the multi-country and small island states where context matters deeply. Next. Okay. To address these risks, maintaining methodological rigor was essential. This included verifying AI outputs against source data and ensuring human evaluators remain central to all decisions. It also required transparent documentation of AI use, as well as strong data governance and practices. So ultimately, AI should support and not replace the core evaluation principles, such as triangulation, as well as critical analysis. Next. In conclusion, AI has strong potential to ensure evaluation is complex. Well, to ensure that evaluation in complex multi-country contexts, right? However, it should not replace the evaluators. Instead, it enables more efficient synthesis, stronger analysis, and greater focus on interpretation and learning. In using AI in the future, we should also ensure that rigor, ethics, and human judgment remain at the center of the evaluation practices at all times. Next. Great. So this here ends my presentation with you today, and I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I do look forward for your questions and discussion at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tashana, for your very interesting and excellent presentation, and we look forward to discussing further. You raised a number of areas for us to discuss, and thanks for sharing. And our next presenter is Kamisha Swaby, and we welcome everyone who has joined. So that our first presentation was by Tashana Providence Ford, and our next presentation is by Kamisha Swaby, Development Specialist and Researcher. Kamisha has over 14 years of experience in monitoring and evaluation, program management, and development research across the Caribbean. She specializes in mixed methods research, stakeholder engagement, and evaluations involving vulnerable populations. Her work includes feasibility studies and independent evaluations for international donors. As a member of Caribbean Evaluators International, she supports the responsible use of emerging technologies while promoting ethical, credible, and evidence-informed decision-making in the Caribbean. So welcome, Kamisha, and over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey and Homam. I'm very happy that you got the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone. Good morning. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. And I believe that across all the presentations you'll hear this morning, you'll find some synergies because certainly in some of the things that Tashana presented from her experience, I certainly have alignment and I'm going to keep my clock running on my side to ensure I am on time. So we can go to the next slide, please. I want to start first by talking about qualitative analysis, which is an important part of the work I do, whether it is in research or in evaluation practice specifically. And what we've seen over the last decade is that the research industry has been pretty obsessed with big data and quantitative dashboards. But we have noticed a kind of shift is happening. Qualitative research is now growing at 7.2% compound annual growth rate, and that is outpacing several quantitative segments of research. And this has implications for evaluation practice, where we oftentimes are not just contending with quantitative data, but we have to be utilizing lots of qualitative elements as well. Decision makers are realizing that quantitative data paints the very good picture of what happened, but the qualitative research is so very important in telling us why it happened. Again, something critical for evaluators. There's a need to understand the whole human, things like the cultural drivers, the emotional motivations, the community influences that shape both behavior as well as program outcomes. This is something that is critical in the Caribbean context, and our evaluation landscape then is deeply, deeply complex. If we're doing any sort of cross-country analysis, any cross-country study, it includes different cultures, different cultural nuances, and therefore adds layers of complexity to any study. So the challenge that we face is that qualitative analysis in the traditional way is labor intensive. And I've also reasonably assumed that a number of us have been involved in this sort of labor intensive qualitative analysis for quite some time. Now, a skilled analyst can rigorously process 8 to 12 in-depth transcripts in any day. And if you're evaluating a transnational program spanning Jamaica, other countries in the Caribbean, Jamaica and North America, because we know we have the diaspora there. And recently, one of the studies I completed included looking at Jamaican real estate demand as well as interest coming from North America, and then a program implementation that was across the two spaces. So what we found is that you might need to conduct 50 to 100 interviews, and that may take 6 to 12 weeks of analysis alone before you begin the sort of deep interpretive work of what you are finding. Evaluators can also spend up to 80% of their time on data organization, transcription, initial coding, sourcing, and organizing, but that was in the past. And in the past, what would be then some of the high value work in terms of interpreting findings, applying frameworks, and identifying structural drivers, and contextualizing the results for stakeholders might have taken a shorter time. And this is where AI can change the equation. But it's critical that we understand that AI is not replacing the evaluator, but it is amplifying their capacity by taking an expert first, but AI enhanced approach. It works in this way. We use AI-assisted thematic analysis tools to process 50 to 100 transcripts per day. Most of us are using AI in the transcription, so we don't have to be replaying all the tools to just check that something was said correctly. But we may check because sometimes the AI systems that are being used don't get things like Jamaican Creole very well. So we also have to go back and check, and then we have to translate if it is that we are the locals conducting the evaluation for an international entity, and they may not have the experts who understand Jamaican Creole too, not just from the transcription. The AI suggests relevant codes based on the content analysis, but the human evaluator is who reviews, refines, and contextualizing those suggestions. The cultural nuance, the understanding of local dialect, and the sensitivity to community dynamics must come from the human expert first. The AI is the engine that allows the expert to work at scale. And the result is that we've been able to achieve up to 40% faster time to insight while maintaining the human interpretation layer that's necessary for cultural nuance. And so we spend most of our time now doing deeper analysis and perhaps 20% of our time on the data organization. And that has allowed us to sort of flip the traditional ratio. Next slide, please. So in the traditional approach, analyzing 50 in-depth interviews, as I said, could take us to 8 to 12 weeks. By the time your analysis is complete, data can even feel a little bit stale, and we might struggle sometimes to conduct the cross-market comparison because the analysis happens sequentially, not necessarily in parallel. When you have an AI enhanced approach where you're processing faster, you are able to see preliminary insights emerging in 2 days, in 3 weeks, even across the data, depending on the volume that you're capturing. And evaluators are sort of freed from the manual data organization to focus on the interpretation, contextualization, and strategic insight generation. So when we had to do that dual market diaspora ethnography, the Jamaica-based research were conducting in-depth interviews with local consumers here. And then we had a team that was supporting in North America, collecting the parallel interviews with diaspora members. And we were even able to work sometimes remotely with the Jamaica team, collecting information across the pond. And traditionally, you'd analyze what's in Jamaica first because it's a Jamaica-led project, and then North America and try to compare. But the teams were able to work simultaneously because AI was supporting with the transcription, the early thematic analysis, and that was able to cut the time for the study in a meaningful way. Next slide, please. Now, I want to, like Tashana, speak to some of the ethical considerations and things like data governance as well. You can skip to the next one, actually. There are legitimate concerns about using AI in evaluation, particularly when working with sensitive data and particularly working with data from vulnerable populations, or like a study I'm doing now, we're using some health data. The first thing we need to do is to, one, if we need ethical approval for the management of the data, that's important. And then transparency. We must declare exactly how and where AI is being used. Clients know that AI is assisting with coding. Clients know this. They know that many persons are using AI. But human evaluators are reviewing and refining every suggestion, and that builds trust in any output that will be given. The second point is on data privacy. So any sensitive evaluation data, particularly from vulnerable populations, must be protected. It's important to not feed raw interview data into public AI models. So we have to use, where possible, any localized tools, and we do de-identification, that sort of thing, because maintaining the strict data governance protocols aligned with international research, international evaluation practice, but also with the Data Protection Act in Jamaica is important. And third, human control. The evaluator retains final decision-making authority, and this must be a non-negotiable for us. That's how we try to treat it. And then we have audit trails. We try to make sure we track every coding decision, who coded what, when, and why. And remember that you can interrogate the analysis. So for me, there are many times where I am talking to the AI tool that I am using because I have to write first the script for the analysis, right? What is expected. And sometimes you'll get an output. You cannot simply accept it. You must review. And it's good to have tools that, whether it is that they can record your voice and transcribe very well. So it's like a tool called Whisper Flow, which, then allows you to use the AI while you're talking. Because different of us, we process differently. For me, I like to talk my thoughts or handwrite, and I have to go from that to a sort of conversation with the tool that I'm using to get the sort of analysis and recatch things. And the cultural competence. AI cannot replace our contextual judgment. Most of the tools now that exist are trained on global north data, and that introduces bias. And AI trained on US insights might miss Caribbean cultural nuances, and this is where we continue to remain relevant and important, and that's why the expert first principle is non-negotiable. Next slide for me, please, which is my final slide. So for me, AI is certainly a powerful tool for managing evaluation work. It can help with literature review, it can help with synthesis, qualitative data coding and thematic analysis, transcription, and importantly too, is a good one for me, data visualization. It can help us work faster and help us work at scale, but it should not and cannot replace a trained evaluator eye. Evaluation still requires a deep methodological expertise, cultural competence, and contextual judgment. And these are the areas where AI is currently weakest. The future of Caribbean evaluation isn't about replacing evaluators with AI. It's about evaluators using these tools to amplify their capacity while maintaining rigor, ethics, and cultural depth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kamisha, for your excellent presentation and insights shared, and a lot for us to discuss as well as we go forward. So thank you again. And welcome again to everyone joining. And so our first speaker was Tashana Providence Ford, and our second speaker, Kamisha Swaby. And we now invite Dr. Stephen Johnson, Research Fellow at the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies, for his presentation. So Dr. Johnson is an accomplished researcher with extensive experience in research methods and monitoring and evaluation methodologies. With a vast portfolio of projects and research publications focused on confronting developmental issues in Jamaica, the wider Caribbean, and the developing world, Dr. Johnson is committed to taking a pragmatic approach to development challenges. His expertise lies in advanced research methods, monitoring and evaluation, voting behavior, user experience analysis, predictive analytics, harm reduction, and behavior modification campaigns. So we welcome Stephen, and please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to the directors. I have a brief overview, and I think at this stage we would have reached the point of saturation, just 3 presentations in. So I will try it as best as possible to share my personal experience. Now, I start out by developing a small matrix to address the questions that were posed or that will be posed. And one of the first one is, in terms of how do I use AI tools? First thing, I do use AI tools, mainly ChatGPT, and most recently Claude. Over the years, in the area of qualitative research, I would have used NVivo, but NVivo now has a built-in AI tool that you normally use to summarize data. Now, one of the first thing, from inception, you would use it to draft or get an idea. Or, let's say we have a TOR that calls for an evaluation. You would get a sense of how, an overview of what the theory of change should look like, or if there's a theory of change, what methodologies you can use. But despite using AI, in my work, one thing I find that is fundamental. AI is supplementary in that you have to have the foundation knowledge, because oftentimes or not, depending on the model that you have or which one you're using, AI hallucinates. So you have to have the foundational knowledge to direct this software, might not, notwithstanding it's learning from us as we're going along. So in my case, working on a project, M&E, whether evaluation or monitoring, the first thing is to match the tool to task. What is the objectives of the project? What indicators are we tracking? You get suggestion and maybe the methodology. And again, using your human expert, you get to make the final decision on which is most appropriate. You're designing a questionnaire to collect some information to feed some indicator. You can use it to generate ideas based on the indicators and the type of questions to ask to make sure there is alignment. And most importantly, and it's quite impressive, is AI is now at the stage that it can design a questionnaire, actually code it, that you can basically just upload in Code Toolbox, and it's ready to go. Usually you have to code it yourself or find out where their gaps are using the AI, but now you can code the entire thing. Ready-made. I find that quite impressive when it generates the Excel file or the codes. In terms of benefits, without a doubt, faster instrument development, because sometimes when you used to code, and I'm from the old school and I used to code the Excel sheet with hand to draw data, be it monitoring data or evaluation data. It would take a while, and sometimes when there's one code that is off, you have to go through the entire thing and comb it line by line to find out where the errors are. Now, even when you get an error, you can just use the AI to help you to identify where the error. It can actually tell you where the exact line, a row and column where the error is. Of course, there's the risk of being overly reliant on the software. However, as I stated before, I treat it as a supplementary tool for an expert. It helps to save a lot of time. But at the end of the day, there's still a substantial amount of work to be done in terms of validating what you're seeing and relying on your established expertise. Qualitative research, as it comes to efficiency, sometimes it would take maybe up to a month, depending on the amount of transcripts. Let's say you're looking at 60 transcripts, an average an hour to go through that and actually code it, and to have a delivery within a month. That would take a team of maybe 10 to 15 persons, not just to collect the data, but there was usually a time lag to transcribe the information. Now, most software tools, I find them that the transcription is instantaneous, and some of them are quite sensitive towards Caribbean dialect. From experience in working across 7 Caribbean countries, it's safe to say maybe the Bahamas, it takes some adjusting to the Bahamian dialect, but for the most part, it tries to code. But what you would do is to require human beings to actually go over the transcript to make sure what was said is accurate, because qualitative research is based on accuracy. And when the AI has to guess, it's going to use context clue or based on what was said before. And oftentimes on that, if you're not careful, the meaning is missed. So whereas it is instantaneous and it captures that transcript instantaneously, you have to supplement it by asking human beings to just comb over the transcript to maintain accuracy. And in 99% of the case, there's always some correction. But of course, this would have reduced at least 90% of the time that it would take to review a transcript. In terms of analyzing interviews, again, imagine having transcripts for 69 focus groups and having to comb through all of these. Now, as I would have established before, using NVivo, and I've also seen it in Atlas, they also rely on AI as well. And once you sanitize the transcript, of course, and you upload it, so what we tend to do is when we get each transcript, you give it a pseudonym or a code. And of course, you'd have a code book to establish where that the source or the base of that information. So once you sanitize the transcript, removing names or any sensitive information that could help to identify persons, you upload that transcript to Pete Atlas or NVivo, and within moments, it can help you to generate the teams. But again, the human element is there because you have to develop the quantitative data analysis matrix, where you do your compare, contrast, and distinguish. So you would have to design that and give a sense of what you want the output to be like. You design the matrix, you design the prompt, you upload it. Sometimes the software, it doesn't get in the first, second, or maybe third try, so you have to kind of play around with it to establish the pattern in terms of what you're looking for. And then it learns very quickly. And even after doing so, you still share the information with research assistants, assistants for them to look over the information to make sure that it's accurately captured. Those power codes, they actually can be linked back to a coded transcript, etc., etc. So that human oversight is still there. And I will always emphasize for that human element to remain so, because it mitigates the fear of being replaced, and for the tool to remain or to be continuously treated as a supplementary tool. Having your research assistant also go over the transcript and linking it back to what was said, it helps to prevent losing contextual meaning, and especially sharing back the information in a way, in a way as to follow the guidelines of triangulation, sharing it back with data collectors sometime. It gives them a sense they can confirm that, okay, yes, that in a sense, we believe that was what was intended or meant when it was captured. So this helps us with instances where the software might hallucinate or miss nuances or contextual interpretation. As it relates to issues with privacy, we try as best as possible to be guided by research ethics. You remove identified information. If it is sensitive information, then of course you cannot, well, I would advise against sharing it with AI agents such as Claude or ChatGPT. It would remain restricted to those like NVivo. This is where the advantage comes in terms of using software like NVivo or Atlas. That information, in a sense, it can be retained or restricted somewhat. In terms of working with additional data sets that require confidentiality, you'd have to get permission, of course, or what others have done, or some clients I've worked with in the past. They ask for a disclaimer. You have to outline exactly how or what type of information was used, and they would have to validate it first. We did this with UNFPA and their most recent annual report. You had to state to what extent the AI was used, maybe even share the matrix with them, so they get a sense of it. But of course, they acknowledge that this helps with efficiency and it's accepted, but it must be declared. All right, and of course, that enables rapid analysis. Using anonymized data, as I said, removing names and using the data to make as data protection act as a guide, preserving the identity of the subject. And lastly, to answer the question, how can evaluators maintain methodological rigor and professional judgment? Like what my previous presenters would have stated, treat AI as an assistant, not as a decision maker, because at the end of the day, you have the expertise to correct, because it's almost certain that, at this stage, AI is basically guessing, is based on predictive analytics. So the human element has to be there to guide that judgment, treat it as an aid, but the human being should have the ultimate oversight, and of course, the human being the expert. So you'd have to have the expertise how to use it or how to guide it, and also how to correct it. And that's it in a nutshell, because triangulation will prevail in terms of having your peers review whatever information is there, check it against context, etc., etc. So I find it to be a very useful tool, especially when used responsibly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for your presentation, for the insights shared, and for the areas that will assist with the discussion and the overview that you shared as well. So we are very happy for the presentations, please, and the expressions of appreciation. Please also include any questions in the chat, and we will be welcoming our fourth presenter, Kenel Kade. So far again, we've had Tashana, Providence Ford, Kamisha Swaby, Dr. Stephen Johnson, and now we are welcoming Kenel Kade, who will be sharing with us some of the findings from a survey of AI in use in evaluation in the Caribbean. So Kenel Kade is Executive Director of the Global Initiative for Sustainable Development and is an agricultural economist and PhD candidate in innovation economics with interest in innovation ecosystems, evaluation practice, organizational learning, and evidence-based decision-making. He holds a master's degree in international development and has more than 15 years of experience supporting and managing development initiatives across the Caribbean region and Africa. He previously served as executive director of FONDAD and is currently contributing to the development of which he's executive director of GISD, a consulting firm he co-founded. He's a member of CEI and CapeNet and formerly served on the board of CLIO, a coordination platform of more than 60 national and international NGOs in Haiti. So welcome again, and thank you, Kenel, and over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, attendees. It's a pleasure for me to be here, to be part of this distinguished panel, to be part of this discussion. Today, I'll be happy to first discuss one of the survey conducted by AI, share the findings with you, and then be part of this very interesting conversation related to the use of AI based on my personal experience. I don't know, do you have like the presentation with you?
Yes, it is showing. It's showing. So we're on the cover slide, and so you could indicate, and Omam will advance as needed.
It's perfect. So as I said, the first section will be focused on like okay. Thank you. So my presentation will be based on two parts. The first section will share with you the findings of a survey conducted by CEI. And the second aspect is like other presenters did it already. So share their personal experience with you. First of all, in terms of this first part, we're gonna see the survey, who responded and who are adopting AI in practice in the Caribbean. We're gonna see together like different tools like AI or evaluation practitioners are using in the Caribbean. And key concern in barriers, trust and accountability. I think the previous presenters mentioned a lot of those aspects. And we're gonna see what on more detail what the survey tell us about like the use of AI in practice in the Caribbean, in evaluation practice in the Caribbean. Next. Over the past few weeks, the CEI team has conducted an online survey. We have across the Caribbean region, we have like 31 respondents. 58% are members of the Caribbean, more than, and what is really interesting in terms of participation, even though the sample or the number of participants was low, but at least more than 50% of the participants have accumulated more than 11 years of experience in evaluation and development. That means those participants, they are not early or evaluators, so they are like senior professional who knows very well the evaluation. And the respondents are from 20 territories or countries in the Caribbean. Mostly, we have like a lot of respondents from Haiti, Jamaica, Belize, and all over, as I said, all over the Caribbean. And 87% of those who participate in this survey confirm that they have used AI at least once during their practice in an evaluation. And what is really, really interesting, like 35% of the respondents, they have used it regularly. And some 23%, they have like some time. But it's really important that to understand that the use of AI in evaluation practice is no more questionable. The question is how to use AI more responsibility across the Caribbean, and how an organization like CEI should what they should do to support like the responsible use of AI in terms of evaluation and practice. Next slide. In this slide, as you can see, we're gonna see the tools and the task, and most of the most important tools, ChatGPT remain one like the most important or dominant tools used by our evaluators in the Caribbean. Then you have cloud and other platform, built-in platform, they are using it. And another important aspect I want you to see in this tool is like the translation aspect. Different from the previous presenter, they mentioned like the cultural bias, or like the importance of like integrating our cultural norms, values when conducting this evaluation. And 41% are using like translation tools, so in a way that they can provide this cultural insight, or they can see, or they can see or integrate the multi-language aspect of the Caribbean in the evaluation practice. In terms of tasks, what most of them, so they are agreed that 74% they are using it for literature review, synthesis, and data analysis and visualization. So those are really important aspects. And as previous presenter mentioned, those tasks are really time consuming, and our evaluators are turning to AI so they can now increase their efficiency. Next slide, please. Now, what are the main concern of our evaluators in the Caribbean? So 70% mentioned that confidentiality and data privacy is a really concern. Is a concern for the evaluators. That's really good, specifically when we hear that from experienced evaluators from the Caribbean perspective, because one of like the key issue by using AI right now is like how to respect the confidentiality of the data. And we talk about like the issue related about data sovereignty. So because those data used to train the AIs, they are not particularly from the Caribbean perspective, though they don't really capture the norms or the cultural values of the Caribbeans. They're from different aspects. So if you look at the sovereignty aspect, it's really important for us as evaluator when you are using AI. I think the previous Dr. Johnson mentioned it, that inaccurate and fabricated outputs, it's really it's a regular matter or issue when you are using AI, and a lot of our evaluators are alert about like this issue, how the use of AI can contribute to the production of inaccurate or fabricated output during the evaluation. And again, as you mentioned, the confidentiality issue, kind of like the barrier as well. They are like the similarity. We have like different aspects, but they see that some of evaluators see those concerns as well as like some barrier in terms of adoption of AI in evaluation practice in the Caribbean region. Another aspect is the bias content. I think the previous presenter did mention it about there's like a lot of bias if you don't use AI in a more responsible and very responsible way. So we can introduce bias in the findings because again, that is connected to the way AI has been trained. Next slide. Again, the same, a lot of like 75% of like the evaluators, those we discussed with who participated in the survey, they are really think that the use of AI can affect negatively the trust and credibility of evaluation. So if not used responsibly. And what another really important aspect is like they agree that we need as an evaluator in terms of practice, we need to be able to disclose that in our report, in our documents, that when AI has been used, we need to disclose that. That's really an important aspect. So because it's not only 76% of the participants that agree on that, there's no doubt that when you use AI, we need to tell them. It's a matter of transparency. It's a matter of like responsible behavior as an evaluator, as a professional in the evaluation. So there's no doubt about that. So they agree that we need to disclose AI when we use it. Next slide. Some of the key element we capture is again the way when they are talking about AI, the use of AI, the opportunities we see doing AI, and I think the previous presenter mentioned it. It's like efficiency. So they've been using AI specifically, as you know, if you are like data analysis, the first stage coding, data prep, when you're preparing the data, they're gonna take like 70% of your time. With the AI tool, that increase efficiency and cost efficiency. That's really important. But as well, because AI are widely available, it contributes to cost reduction, it contributes to as well as the quality of data is sometimes better if we put like not only use the data responsibly. So next slide. Again, we mentioned about that. Those are some of the words people are using and to express the way they feel about the data, specifically about ethics, integrity, confidentiality, and over-reliance. And I want to mention that ethics and integrity is really important, and they are aware of that. But one of the things maybe that we didn't mention during the previous presentation is that if the use over time, the use of AI in evaluation can lead to, again, over-reliance, or what we call that kind of like intellectual passivism. So if you use AI too much, if you keep using it and you feel like you are very productive, you are very efficient, so you will end up being over reliance on the tool, and that will be that will probably affect like the way the findings of our reports. So that's really important. So some of them mentioned that. I don't think during the previous presentation we already pay attention to that aspect. And another aspect which is really important for us from the Caribbean perspective is the contextual and cultural misrepresentation. And as we said, we are the evaluators. AI produce like some of the output based on some of the inputs they receive, not necessarily from the Caribbean, but from other countries. which are those countries doesn't really share like the same value with us, so we need to pay attention. So the human in the loop is really important in that to look at the data we produce and how we can make sure that the findings of our evaluation reflects like the culture or the value of the Caribbean. And the last part, again, as we mentioned, the privacy concern, it's really important when you are, they mentioned that in their own words, when they are doing evaluation, we need to take that all those aspects in consideration. Next slide. That's not really, this is kind of the thing. We say CEI, but this is based on the survey. We cannot extrapolate the findings. We have only 31%, but at least they give us a snapshot of what should be done. Organizations like CEI or other organizations should be done. So we see that our evaluators, they are alert, they know about like a lot of issues, but there's a lot of things that need to be done in terms of like developing norm and standard professional to make sure that our evaluators are professionally accountable for the work they are produced, for the recommendation they are produced, for the recommendation they are formulated as part of the evaluation. We need to make sure that our evaluators, they are not really rely on data hallucination from the AI to produce the report, but we need to develop set of guidance so they can use to minimize this kind of like I would say threat or risk connected to the use of AI. And surely upskilling is really important in the Caribbean. When you say upskilling, there's a gap in terms of training. So training people on the use of AI, not only use it as a tool to produce an output, but use it in a responsible way is a really important aspect from the Caribbean. And ensure governance, as I said, governance is really important. We mentioned that, producing the norm, producing the frameworks. So for our evaluators, so when they are using AI, they make sure that they don't use it in a way that can harm other people, in a way that that produce like very responsible findings and that can be used by other practitioners to change the life or the living condition of all of the Caribbean people. Not only the Caribbean people, but all everyone. So next slide. Again, and thank you for your engagement and participation. And the previous presenters has mentioned it. AI is a tool, is one of the series of computational tool. We need to use it responsibly. We need to use it in a way that we can produce findings that can be used in the developing world. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Ken, for your excellent presentation, and to all the participants and the respondents to the survey who shared, and for your analysis and sharing the key insights, some of which we will discuss. And we're seeing as well all the appreciation for your presentation, and thank you again. So at this time, we are going to ask a round of questions for all the presenters. In the chat, we have one from Curlin, also endorsed by Melissa. And this one is to Tashana, but applicable to all the speakers in terms of working with vulnerable populations. And we'll start with Tashana for the responses. and as we do a round of responses. So the question, and it relates to the handling of sensitive data, particularly for children in the context of UNICEF, and de-identification, pseudonymization, and anonymization are sometimes treated as interchangeable, but they are not. In our small island context, where a handful of attributes can be re-identify someone, is stripping the names, positions, etc. actually enough? What does responsible data handling look like before anything touches an AI tool? Okay, and Tashana has responded here. So Tashana, I don't know if you would like to go ahead as well.
Hi, thank you so much. So as as the presenter was presenting, I saw the question and I made my response there. Thank you so much for the question, and I wanted to highlight that in my response in the chat that in small island contexts, basic anonymization is really not often enough. And so responsible data handling is very, very important. We should also ensure that there's careful risk of assessment prior to using any AI tool. This as well is also highlighted within our UNICEF guidance as on ethics and policy. And so we strongly focus and ensure that this part is very important to ensuring that no information for anyone is being known, can be identified, right? This is special. This is particularly special with when we are conducting survey. But in the case where we would have done the multi-country evaluation, in terms of person identification and so forth, it was not so relevant in our case. But ensuring that privacy and ethics were maintained using our guidelines, this was done for evaluation.
Thanks very much, Tashana, for sharing. And I think also the distinction, as presenters have been mentioning, between the secondary data and the primary data, and then especially in this context in relation to children and minors and vulnerable populations. I know that Kamisha also mentioned working with vulnerable populations. Kamisha, would you like to respond? And then we'll ask Stephen and Ken.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Bailey. And I think it's such a great question, and I appreciate Tashana's response very much. Yes, I think one of the things that all evaluators, I think it was from Curly, need to know is the distinction between these processes. I am currently working on a study where we're utilizing some health data, and that health data is from actual patient files. Some of them are now dated, so we've had to go through the ethical approval process to be able to get access to it. And the declaration of the assessment tool is also something that is utilized. So being very clear on the de-identification protocol is important because yes, it is easy in small island and small community contexts, and some vulnerable populations are very small, so it's easy to find who would fit a particular description. So before anything can touch any AI tool, it's important to utilize a very, very clear de-identification protocol. But in addition to that, I wanted to flag that some of the AI tools have the option of localizing the service instead of it being cloud-based. And that's also a step that can be taken. Specifically, the output for this work that I'm doing is supposed to be hosted on a local laptop utilizing a final database as Microsoft Access. However, I declared very early from the proposal stage that I would utilize Max QDA and the fee has been paid for it to be a localized operation of max QDA for some of the qualitative aspects of the data that will be utilized, because we'll have to do focus groups and in-depth interviews as well to complement the dated information that we'll be getting from some of the patient files. So I would say yes, the identification that must be done by hand. It's a manual process before anything can touch AI. But also, if you're going to be utilizing the AI tools, consider utilizing not the cloud-based versions, certainly not a free version, but localizing and paying for the secure access on a local server. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Very important insights as well. Stephen, would you like to make a comment here?
Sure. Thank you. You see, we have a challenge here because sometimes we do share the information directly or indirectly, for example. And my Microsoft Copilot, it captures the information. Once you're using Microsoft, and oftentimes than not, some of the information you're going to use is going to either be in Excel or Microsoft Word. And Copilot has access to that information. Of course, you'd have to go inside and turn off that feature. But to allay all fears as it relates to maintaining confidentiality, it's just to follow ethical guidelines. Once you have any information and they're to be shared, there are going to be protocols. In Jamaica, there's a Data Protection Act. Persons, like for example, if you go to the Ministry of Education and they're sharing an educational database with you, they tend to sanitize it. The names are converted to IDs that they would have the key to. And once you share that information, as Kimisha shared, you can localize it, or if you're going to upload it, that you do so with the confidence that this information has been sanitized. And of course, data sharing protocol allows for that. So when you have data sharing protocols in place and you adhere to it, then you don't become a slave to the protocol, not to share information. Because the aim of the protocol is not to prevent the sharing of information, it's for you to share and use information to get meaningful data, but to abide by the protocols. And once you have ethics in place and your Data Protection Act, then everything should be fine. Save for in the case of maybe Microsoft Copilot, you'd want to turn off the data capture feature. All right.
Okay, thanks very much as well for the insights and recommendations. And Kennel?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things I would like to add to that discussion is the type of data, right? If it's publicly available data, we are free to go. We should be able to, and I think I discussed that with the members CI. If it's publicly, some of evaluation, if the data are publicly available, so you're free to go, you should be able to use them in an AI tool. Of course, we need to discuss with the company or the commissioners of the evaluation. But when it happen, if those data are like privately owned or this data you're gonna collect specifically from vulnerable communities, it's really important to make sure that the data are anonymized and first before use them. And it's not really recommended to use general tools for this step, like the identification and the codification. It's better to use locally available tools to do that. But one of the risks, and I think Dr. Stephen Johnson just mentioned it, there are more and more tools that are AI built-in tools. You need to be very cautious by using specifically cloud-based tools, because sometimes you think that the data, the way you store them, they are not publicly available, or you won't use them through your AI tool, but the way you store them, you already give access to the data to other, I would say, AI companies. because one of the things with the AI companies, they are not really, some of them, they are not really abide by this confidentiality aspect, or this is the data sovereignty aspect. So even though you are taking all this mitigation measure to protect like the data, the privacy, but you need to be aware, you need to make sure that you know what tool you are using and where exactly you are storing on your data and how you protecting the data, to make sure that even though you are not using them through a specific AI tool, but you then put them, they are not available to other AI companies. This is the only thing I would like to add to that conversation.
Thank you, Ken, also for your insights and inputs to the conversation as well. Based on the survey findings, Ken, there is, as you mentioned, a high level of awareness, and Stephen and Salises had also done a public readiness assessment and found high levels of awareness. I know that as well, the mentioning of the selection of tools and whether the open source, the paid version, the personal version, the organizational version, and so on. Those are aspects for discussion based on the responses from the CEI community and the and in your survey of the Caribbean users, a number of tools were mentioned. So asking yourself and all the panelists in terms of when, recommending. So, well, first, how would you recommend someone, an evaluator starting out in AI and evaluation, how would you recommend which tools that they should select? And if they're working with an organization that already has tools, or for example, an NGO that may not be able to afford a paid version, what would you recommend? So Ken, let's start with you.
Thank you. That's really a difficult question. This is where exactly guidelines or developing frameworks for organization and for evaluators are really, really important. So my personal experience, when you want to use an AI tool, the first question is to add like, does this specific tool add value to my work? That's the first thing. And then when you look at the value, you look at, I mentioned earlier about like data protection. So you need to look at the protection aspect. Does this AI tool protect like the vulnerable communities? If it's like we mentioned UNICEF, like those tools, if I use them, you need to make sure you understand like the protocols. That's really important. This is not me. This is not something I'm trying to invent, but this is part of like different other frameworks already available. And then when you have like limited access to some of the tools, your guidelines, professional guidelines in terms of AI, this is where you need to start. You need to develop this kind of guideline to see what are the requirements from your company are in terms of using AI. You need to be able to discuss with them openly in terms of using them and where to use them. So we have like the graphics in about like where people use AI, but it depends on the companies. So we're conducting an evaluation right now, and this is exactly what they say. If the documents we are providing to you as evaluators, they are already available, so you can use them. So you need to discuss in terms of like you discuss with the company. And I think Stephenson mentioned it. We're gonna validate the output. You need to make sure that in your guideline, it's not only you generated this tool doesn't really generated the information, but you need to make sure that you have like a process. So you balance the finding. You have like put in place a system so to not only for transparency but for the, as we said, the human on the loop to make sure that this data is protected. It's not only selecting the tool, but we need to implement as well this aspect. And I already mentioned the transparency tool. And the last thing, maybe the availability, the cost. I know it's not, maybe for as an evaluator, this is not really the most important, but as well, we need to find like the cost. If it's some AI tools, they are available, they can provide like the same efficiency level. So you need to be aware of this kind of tool. But the most important is to look at like the protection aspect, the safety of your data. This is really important as an evaluator, because you need to protect like the organization you are working with, but most importantly, the vulnerable communities who are going to benefit from your work.
Thanks very much. Tashana, would you like to comment on
Sure.
the selection and decisions on the AI tools to be used?
Okay, perfect. From my perspective and based on my experience within UNICEF, the choice depends on what you're trying to do, and importantly, what kind of data you're working with. In the selection of tools, for example, is guided first by data protection, confidentiality, and especially ethical standard. So not every tool is appropriate, especially when working with sensitive information about children or even communities. In practice, for example, in evaluations, we prioritize tools that are strong in document analysis and synthesis, since a large part of the work involves reviewing program reports, strategies, and evidence that were captured throughout the year. That typically means using secure approved AI tools. And one of the tools, for example, that we use in our evaluation was large language modules by a company called Raw Square. But on an everyday basis, for example, if you want to do a small overview or small analysis, or writing a small document, or just want a review of a document that was written, we also have access to Copilot within the organization, which is a secured tool within the organization. So platforms that allow controlled document updates, ensure data is not externally stored or reused or compiled with organizational data, for example, is one of the requirements. I would also add that the preference is often for simpler, more transparent tools rather than highly complex tools, because it is easier to validate as well as control. And most importantly, ensuring that the tool that you're using is fit for purpose. It ensures that data security can be maintained. There's transparency as well as the human oversight of it, as some of the technical considerations that should be considered when it deals with evaluation.
Thank you very much, Tashana. Kamisha?
Sure, Doc. Thank you. Just a bite-sized response from me. I think the speakers before me have talked about, knowing what you're using it for. And given that the approach that I take, and I think Dr. Johnson mentioned a similar approach, which is AI assisting, then the question that first would need to be answered is, what is the bottleneck that I'm trying to solve? What are the constraints that I am trying to respond to? So what is my area of need, and also what's the kind of data that I will need to be utilizing? I think I start from there, and once that is answered, then we can look at, okay, what of the tools that are available, what options do I have? And I want to echo the sentiments from Tashana. So while yes, some institutions may be able to get some proprietary LLMs, For most people, it's what's publicly available, and some of them are larger and more tested. But it's also important to explore what are the data governance protocols around the use of those tools, and what can you get in terms of informed consent from your organization or from the engaging entity around utilizing any AI tool. And then if it is that, you need support in terms of data visualization, for me, because of some of the issues that have happened with Claude, while Claude is very good at thinking and talking through many things, you don't always want to put a lot of your data into Claude. Well, my practice, I don't want to put a lot of my data into Claude. However, if it's something that's an output and I want to support with data visualization, that is something that I like to use Claude support on, because I find that that tool is very, very good on that. For qualitative data analysis, Dr. Johnson mentioned 2 tools already, but one that I have been utilizing recently is called Max QDA, and it can be locally installed. And that, I use that for the support with coding of qualitative data, but it always is a suggestion, because of course, many times by virtue of being involved in the process yourself of data collection, you start seeing some of the themes emerge, and by hand even, you might be noting some data. And my final point is, if you're going to be utilizing any of the tools, whether as an organization or as an individual, it is still very, very important for us to upskill ourselves in things like prompt engineering, so that we know that we can lay the good groundwork, whether it is outlining a specific framework for analysis that we expect to be used and that sort of thing, how we want the data to be integrated into the systems that the AI tool we use to analyze, so that there are still some guardrails that we're putting in during the analysis process of any data. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kamisha. So we are, as we go into our final round of questions and wrapping up this excellent session, we thank Caroline for this question to all the presenters, and Stephen, will start with you. So it says there's an expectation from some clients that the evaluation can be done in record time. How do you manage that expectation, protect the quality of the work, and have the honest conversation with clients that good evaluation still takes human time and judgment?
Dr. Bailey. The reality is that question has the answer. To produce quality, it still takes time. It's just that the time is shorter, but it doesn't mean that you're going to cut corners, be it regard to data governance, be it regarding ethics. You still have to go through those aspects, and we still have to respect the guardrails that are in place. So you make that very firm. So it's faster than usual, but it does not give you a license to cut corner, because then you would be violating ethics, you might be breaching privacy, etc., etc. That's my take in a nutshell.
Thanks very much, Stephen. And also, it might be that some clients may try and compare as well in terms of what they can get an AI tool to do, and so that might have to be part of the discussion. So,
right. Manage expectations. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Ken, would you like to comment?
I mean, I agree with Dr. Johnson. The most important aspect is to discuss with the organization, to tell them that's true that you can use AI to produce like a lot of outputs, findings, and things. So, but you still can use it, and you have like the report is of high quality, but that doesn't mean the findings reflect like the reality of the evaluation. So we need to have like an honest discussion with the organization to make sure that they want you to do the work, but you have like the specific time or the required time to produce the quality of work. I think that's the dialogue with the conversation, having that kind of conversation is really important.
Thank you very much, Kenel. And we invite Tashana for comments.
Hi. So I just want to add to what other presenters would have included, as well as give a word of caution, I should say. Whereas AI, it helps to speed up the process, especially doing synthesis, for example. It's very important to always emphasize that human judgment remains key for validation throughout the entire process. And so expectations can be managed clearly by ensuring that rigor and credibility are not compromised once we are doing an evaluation.
Thanks very much, Tashana, for the words of guidance as well. And Kamisha?
Thanks, Dr. Bailey. That's why it's always important for us to have the conversation upfront about AI enhanced, not AI enabled. AI is only a tool that is being used to support the experts. It's almost like when you think of going to a doctor and the doctor says, okay, I need to get a scan, right? You get the scan at the radiologist, and the radiologist can take the pictures. However, the radiologist trained eye is still very, very important in making a note of what exactly has happened so they can write the details. They can know if they need additional information, etc., etc. At the end of the day, while AI can do certain aspects faster, which is the transcription, they can support with thematic analysis. None of that gives the sort of nuance that a trained evaluator, an experienced evaluator can give. And there's also the missing of the cultural context. Now, one final point for me, I always like to remind people, somebody who is trained in medicine and somebody who is trained in, I want to get like something that feels like it's completely opposing art, right? Both experts in their field, utilizing the same AI model on a same question will yield different results. You know why? Because they would write the questions that they're asking AI to answer differently, because they would interpret the output given from AI differently, and their follow-ons will certainly be different. In the same way, evaluators are chosen for their expertise in particular areas. They're not chosen for their expertise in using AI. And because of that, there still has to be significant value placed on the intense analytical work, which any evaluator will still need to do. And this will come out in the report writing, it will come out in how the data is presented, all of that. And so upfront, this is going to be something to let any client know that, yes, these are the ways that I will use AI. However, this other part is very important because we are also trying to ensure we maintain our professional integrity, not just the ethics.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Kamisha, for this. Okay, and thank you, Lisa. Thanks to the host and all the presenters. A great session, and I agree. Thank you so much to the speakers for your presentations, for your insights, for your thoughts shared. We've covered a lot in terms of looking at awareness, readiness, issues of governance, the learning and capacity building process, accountability, data ownership, culture, human judgment, and all the different aspects that are important. As Stephanie says, really fantastic session. Thanks to the hosts, moderators, and speakers. And so, yes, we thank our partners, with ALNAP, CDB, Salises, and a special thanks to CEI and the organizing team. And we'll be handing over to Valerie for closing remarks, and we will also show the upcoming sessions this week. This has been a fantastic session for the start of gLocal Week, and we thank our presenters, Tashana Providence Ford, Kamisha Swaby, Dr. Stephen Johnson, Kenel Kade, and we're really very pleased and happy for all of your interventions, and to the audience for all of your questions and participation. And so we now hand to Valerie.
Yes, thank you so much, Arlene. Thanks to everyone. I'm going to hand over very quickly to our Director of Membership, Curleen Beckford, to just wrap up all of this. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, good morning, good night, everyone. We really had a rich conversation, and on behalf of the CEI, Caribbean Evaluators International, I would like to extend sincere thanks to our speakers, and Tashana, Kamisha, Stephen, Kenel. Thank you so much for your sharing your insights so openly, and for showing us what it truly looks like to bring AI into evaluation practice, while holding, as Arlene said earlier, holding firm to rigor, ethics, and credibility. Arlene, I really want to thank you. You have been doing this for us forever, and we thank you for guiding us through such a thoughtful and engaging discussion. We also are so grateful to our partners, Salises, the University of the West Indies, ALNUP, and the Caribbean Development Bank, whose partnership we especially value for our upcoming session 3. We really thank you for making this series possible. And believe you me, the conversation does not end here. We have 2 more gLocal sessions to look forward to, on the 4th and on the 5th. And we are inviting you to join us for both. So please look out for our emails. So we just want to thank you once more, and to say that all of this knowledge will be uploaded on our CEI YouTube channel. So look out in the next 2 weeks and hold us to account if you don't see the events posted. So once again, thank you. A big congratulations to everybody, and thanks for making it today. Over and out.